Hey everyone, Drakey C here. I finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth last week on March the 15th, and I've been giving it a few days to let my thoughts settle. I've played through hard mode a bit, seen what other people have said about the game, and I wanted to give an informal review of my overall thoughts. So before I do that though, a quick primer on my overall experience with Final Fantasy VII. I played it in the mid 2000s, and by that time I had already played the first six games, the first six games as well as 8, 9. I don't think I had played 10 yet, and I'm not sure about 12. But point is, I had played the other Final Fantasy games, and I was active on the FF Wiki. So I was thoroughly spoiled about FF7, and I heard all this hype. It's the best game of the franchise, one of the greatest games of all time. So I went in playing it, expecting to be underwhelmed, because the other Final Fantasy games are great too. Is this really outshining all of them? And I came out of it. Okay, that was good. I would say great maybe. Definitely understood by people, loved it, and it was their favorites. Still don't think it's the best of the franchise. It's definitely in the top 5. My favorite is still Final Fantasy VI, and I still think that's the best of the main series. But I came away from FF7 again. I went in thoroughly spoiled. Came away like that was good. And Final Fantasy VII Remake really actually got me on the hype train. I really enjoyed that game. I was really impressed with what they did with it. And I think I said to some friends at the time, if they can uphold this level of quality and improve upon it in Rebirth, it really could be one of the greatest Final Fantasy games. And that's what they did. This is one of the greatest Final Fantasy games. I prefaced my experience with FF7 so you get that this is not coming from someone that is has a deep nostalgic connection to it or is a huge fanboy of FF7. In my unbiased opinion, this is a one of the best. Fantastic game, one of the best. It ticks pretty much every box I would want a Final Fantasy game to tick. It has excellent gameplay. It has great graphics. It has great, fantastic, incredible character work. It has a strong asterisk story. And for specific features, it's open world. There's a crafting system. There's lots of character customization options. The characters all have a diverse play style. There's lots of side quests and a good variety in those side quests. There's lots of mini games. The only thing it doesn't have that I would want is an airship. And given how the plot is structured, I understood that wasn't going to happen anyway. But they do still let you have a boat and an open sea to explore, and that's almost as good. But it is not perfect. I have my little nitpicks. I emphasize though they are nitpicks. If this game is a beautiful tapestry, there are a couple loose threads here and there, a few places where the stitches are frayed or the pattern was messed up, So I'll let you know when I'm gonna get into spoilers, but overall I'll try to stay spoiler free, although I'm pretty sure by this point anyone who cares about spoilers and is watching this video has probably already found out what they want to know. Anyway. As I said, it's open world, and they handle this open world well. Now what do I mean I hope they handle it well? I'm a big fan of the Fallout series, and in my opinion, Fallout 3 is an excellent open world design. There's lots to explore and do, and your exploration is rewarded with things of substance that directly impact your gameplay. You explore Fallout 3, there's ruined office buildings, there's old subway lines, there's maintenance tunnels, military bases, caves, etc. And you find bobbleheads and weapon schematics and skill magazines and unique items and chems and rare ammo. So Fallout 3, there's always something to reward your experience and make you want to explore. And this game does that. You can explore, and there are things to find when you explore. The game will even note, that this area is a cache. There's lots of Shinra boxes around to smash, and there's a few treasure chests to find. And there are other things of some sense too. There's the life springs. There's um, chocobo treasure digging spots. There's summon shrines. Excuse me. And the other thing I like is, I've seen people call them Ubisoft towers. You know, the towers where you go and activate them and it like reveals the map to you. But this game handles them well. There are them. I believe they're called the Magna Wave towers, or like old radio transmitter towers that Chadley wants you to activate. So, and he can relay intel to you. But when you activate them, they usually only highlight 3 or 4 things. 4 things tops, usually 2 or 3, in the immediate vicinity, and they're usually the same things like life springs or summon shrines. They don't show you everything. They don't show you chocobo stops. They don't show you treasure caches. Though you have to find those on your own. And they also don't reveal the world map to you. They just put these markers on the map. There's a fog of war, and you can see things through the fog of war, but it's not fully revealed until you go there. You can just see enough that you can kinda feel out, okay, there's sort of a pathway going along this way, and that's how I get to that area. And that's a good way, again, that's a good way to handle it. You can see how to get there mostly, but you still have to actually get there. And the Magna Wave towers don't reveal every map marker. And you find the other ones just by looking around, like what looks like a spot of interest, or that ruined tank, that collapsed building, this collapsed bridge. And there's other nudges too, like the life springs have these rare birds that are nearby. So if you see a bird, go follow it. It'll lead you to a life spring. And same with baby chocobos, leading you to chocobo stops. So great open world design. It encourages you to explore, and there's things to find, and there's nudges to help you find things that you want to find, but it doesn't hold your hand. Just a moment. Sorry, just a moment. Okay. So, that's how I feel about the world design. And the other no, that pretty much covers it, honestly. It's an open world done well. Now, the gameplay otherwise, the thing that really impressed me playing this, I played through on normal difficulty. And I assumed that dynamic was their code for hard. I didn't know hard mode was an alternate thing. I don't know why I assumed that in hindsight. But yeah, the challenge level is overall really good. There were areas I struggled on normal mode, and I mean that in a good way. I like a challenge in a game, but I don't like games that are brutally or punishingly hard. And especially because I'm in the fan modding community for older games, it especially bugs me when I see these ROM hacks that are really overboard with being punishingly, brutally difficult, and you have to make very precise jumps or use very precise strategies. This game does not have that. The challenge level is overall good. There are bosses that are going to keep you on your toes, and there are some normal enemies that can annoy the hell out of you. But the challenge level always seems fair. There was only a couple times where I felt, oh, this boss is cheap. Most of the time when I died or I was having struggle, it felt like it was because I was not approaching this fight properly, and I had not prepared my party properly and was not using them well. The major boss fight that I would say, I'm just thinking right now back, like mentally recapping the bosses. Yeah, the only boss fight I would say I would actually consider cheap, and he is cheap, is the summon fight against Odin. And this isn't a spoiler, but TLDR, regardless of the difficulty level and regardless of the power level you set Odin to as an opponent, Odin's shtick is that you have to inflict status ailments on him, use ATB skills and dodge his attacks to basically keep the fight interesting for him. Because if he gets bored, he'll use Zantetsuken, and wipe out the party. Instant death immunity doesn't stop it. Shell and protect, those things don't stop it. And it's basically almost RNG, you know. Just fight Odin, do a good job dodging his attacks, because could only charge ATB so much to use ATB skills, and he's only vulnerable to a handful of status ailments. So dodge his attacks well, and make sure he's enjoying the battle, and if he's not enjoying it, he'll just end it, and there's nothing you can do about it. That one was bull. I didn't like that fight. But the other summon fights were good. And I also like that they let you set a power level on the summon fight, so if you want to challenge yourself more, you can. You don't have to, but you can. Again, I appreciate that. And playing a bit on hard mode, oh, this is where we get to the brutal difficulty. Hard mode is hard mode. But you're playing hard mode, you asked for this, the game's gonna give it to you. So, and also on the challenge level, regards to gameplay from the original, from FF7 Remake is overall improved. Combat feels faster, the characters are more nimble, there's aerial combat now, and the game, like, I didn't really pay attention to this, I admit, but certain combo strings and ATB abilities can launch enemies into the air or can launch the party member into the air. And Cloud has a ranged ability, which is a huge help. And the other characters, again, they all play differently and uniquely, and they're fun to play as. And synergy moves add a great new element to it. The only thing that it confused me a little bit, I admit at first, but I understood it. There's synergy skills and synergy abilities. And skills you can use anytime by holding R1 while you're blocking, and you could pressing one of the 4 face buttons. While synergy abilities have to be selected from the ATB menu and need you to build up synergy bars towards. And they added a new element. The only thing is, there were no 3-person synergy abilities. Now, on the one hand, I understand why, because when characters are doing synergy abilities, they can't do anything else. So, you know, when my party of Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa, when I have Cloud and Tifa do a synergy skill together, I can manually control Tifa because I can't control the other two. So taking control away from the whole party, I could see why they might not want to do that. But still, I want to see 3-person ATB skills. They'd be cool. And my other critique is some of the every synergy ability you use has some sort of effect it bestows on the characters, it has some sort of additional effect. But sometimes it seems like which effect is assigned to which synergy ability is largely random in regards to the characters, and some are much more useful than others. A very common one that I think, like, most characters get this with at least 2 other characters is United Refocus, which splits their ATB gauge into 3. Okay, that's fine. There's another one that bestows the characters Infinite MP. That can be useful, but one of the synergy abilities that does it is Cloud and Tifa. And why would I use Cloud and Tifa to spellcast? Like, I have Aerith, Yuffie, Katesith for that, if I want to spellcast in the party. I understand how it could be useful, especially on hard mode, where MP is more limited, but, you know. And then there's another one is boost stagger duration and damage bonus. I used Clouds and Tifas for that a lot. I don't know if I used it wrong, but it didn't seem to always work. Like, I mean, it worked, it hit the enemy, but it didn't seem to increase stagger duration significantly, and sometimes it didn't boost damage. I think it's because it doesn't, like, proc that effect if you haven't staggered the enemy when you input the command, which is disappointing because by the time the enemy is already staggered and they're doing this move, that stagger gauge and duration increase is not going to be a huge difference maker because it's already almost depleted by the time they get done that move. Like, I would try to time it so that the move itself staggers them, and then as they come out of it, the damage bonus and duration proc. But it doesn't seem to work that way. Maybe I'm wrong and I'm just not paying attention enough. And the last ability, which is most useful and interesting, is an increase in limit levels. Characters retain their level 2 limit breaks from Remake, and they get level 3 ones now, but they have to use synergy abilities to raise their limit level so they can use them. And that's an interesting way to handle it, and it works well. You gotta invest time and synergy bars into getting those level 2 and level 3 limit commands unlocked. Don't meow. My cat has come in, of course. And again, the characters, they each play differently. Tifa, once again, is the Stagger Queen with fast-hitting blows and moves to raise the damage bonus. Cloud still has Punisher mode, although his attack strings in Punisher mode are different. I think it's because they wanted to focus him less as an AoE fighter in Punisher mode, because Red 13 kind of fills that. Red, he does seem like an AoE fighter. He's fast and strong, kind of like Tifa, but his gimmick is that he relies on tanking damage and blocking attacks to build up a vengeance meter, and he enters that, and that gives him a stat bonus, and his special attack now can heal him. So that's an interesting way to do it. Barrett is mostly the same. Yuffie is the same as her DLC episode. The other new character is Kate Sith, and I'll get to his character, but in terms of his gameplay, he's weird. They kind of leaned into the weirdness, like he almost comes off like they intentionally designed him to be a bit of a joke character. A lot of his abilities need him to summon his Moogle into battle to be used in the first place. And they're unique mechanics, like dropping mines around the battlefield. So, like, I think this is the only character with any sort of area control in battle, which is an interesting concept. And he also has abilities with random effects. And I don't know if luck affects the odds of good effects from those abilities. I would assume so, because he has a lot of passive abilities that boost his luck. And again, like he can summon his Moogle in battle as an ATB ability and fight alongside the Moogle, or hop off and fight alone and the Moogle draws aggro and tanks damage for him. Again, he sort of has aspects of a joke character. I didn't use him that much, and when I did use him in the one segment the game forces you to use him, I had trouble getting the hang of it, because sometimes he would do physical attacks, sometimes he'd do magical, and I couldn't get why. Anyway, but the other character to note is Aerith. They really reworked her to be a lot more awesome. Her triangle skill in the remake, I never used it. Now they've integrated it into a basic attack combo as like her charged attack, and also using it gives her fleeting familiar innately instead of having to use it, because of course you always wanted that up in remake. And instead, her new triangle lets her shift between the different wards she's set up, and also just lets her teleport around the map, or around the battlefield. And I used that, and it's pretty handy, because especially since enemies tend to focus on the player-controlled character, you know, there's strategy with, like, switch to Aerith and lure the enemy to the other side of the arena, and then as they prepare to do a super strong attack, teleport to my ward. And they gave her what is easily the coolest new ability in this game, Radiant Ward. And I joked on Twitter. It basically is Aerith the dominant of Bahamut now? Because when she's standing in the Radiant Ward, her basic attack strings have her just wave her hands back and forth, and these magic crests of light appear in the air around her and shoot out laser beams. And it looks awesome. It really increases her damage output and her ATB buildup. And it also makes her invincible while she's casting a spell. She can still be like interrupted and knocked in the air, but she won't take damage. And her dodge, she dodges further away and even seems to teleport visually, if I remember correctly. So overall, Radiant Ward is excellent. Like, I use that every battle. Every longer battle, I use that. And there's another awesome ability, Transcendence, where she basically creates a bunch of magic runes around the enemies and shoots huge blasts of magic at them for big damage. It's awesome. Aerith is my favorite character, I've said before, and and her gameplay is more awesome than ever here. Pardon me. So, I've said before that I have nitpicks, and I emphasize these are nitpicks. They do not ruin the game, but they're kind of like, And one of them is the character upgrade system. And this may seem odd to phrase it, especially in Final Fantasy, which has had way worse in this regard. It's a little abstract, if that's the right word. What I mean is, in Remake you had the weapon cores and you upgraded the weapons. On this, each character has more like a sphere grid from FF10, where you expend points and the character themselves get these passive abilities. Okay. But some abilities require you to achieve a certain weapon level. And what is weapon level? I don't know. This is like what really when it got to me is that I would see I was playing through and I saw abilities on the board like inadequate weapon level or like weapon level 3 required or something like that, and I'd go and I'm like, okay, well, how do I increase weapon level? What's that? And I opened up the manual and it talks about upgrading weapons and increasing weapon level. Okay, but how do I do that? It doesn't tell you. And I did figure it out. Weapon level is basically when your characters win battles and earn SP, which is basically AP, the points that let them unlock abilities. It also contributes to raising their weapon level. And this is what I mean when it's a bit abstract, is that the characters themselves are getting these passive abilities, but they're also tied to their weapon level, which increases as they earn SP for their own skill set. And also the menu still has a screen called Upgrade Weapons, but it doesn't actually upgrade weapons. You don't upgrade weapons in this game. And the upgrade weapon screen just has you equip weapon passive abilities, which you can also do from the equipment and materia menus. So it's like, just a sec. It's almost like they were gonna do a similar thing with how the upgrade system worked in Remake, but then they changed it, and I do like this new system better. I like that there's less emphasis on weapons, and characters can just have innate stat bonuses and abilities they get. But again, it's weird because like the folios are related to the weapons, but they're not. And like you earn SP for them by earning manuscripts. Again, with like how Remake worked, where you were upgrading the weapons, but now manuscripts upgrade your character abilities, and you could only unlock new abilities for them by visiting a bookstore. You can't or by using a machine by vending machine. You can't just unlock new abilities for them from the menu, which does kind of make sense because you can reset them and respec anytime you want, and I like that feature. So maybe they didn't want you to be able to change your abilities anywhere in the field. But then, of course, anytime there's a boss battle coming up, they give you a bench and a vending machine, and now a new machine that lets you change your character's folios. So when you'd want to respec your abilities for a boss, you can still do that. So again, it's a little abstract and weird and confusing and not explained well. And I went looking for explanations in game. I went to the manual. How do I upgrade weapon level? What is that? And it doesn't say. So, and I honestly, I don't know why it's a thing anyway. Why can't it just be your character has to be minimum this level to get this ability? Functionally, it would be the same because weapon level increases as they gain level and SP. And the other nitpicks I have is technical issues. And I'm not one of those persons that, really gets upset if the game doesn't run in 60 FPS constantly. I want to be able to play 4K 60 FPS, and if it drops frames, it's a bad game. I don't care about that. I probably wouldn't even notice if you gave me the same game and 60 versus 30. I might not even notice playing them. But there are technical problems that I did notice, so they were not minor things. Character models clipped sometimes, including clipping through themselves, and that's a common thing, but still I noticed. What I also noticed is that I didn't actually notice this in Remake, but I heard about it, that everyone made fun of the low texture door on Cloud's room. I never noticed it. This game has a lot of that. There are a lot of background objects that are very low texture. You can see the pixelization on them. And most of the time, it's not too bad. Like, there are some times when you're just looking at the environment and you're like, man, the label on that bottle is really blocky and chunky. But then there's times where the blocking for a scene will have a close-up of the scenery objects. And that's when you really notice it's bad. And when they're putting it up front in front of the camera like that, you especially notice it. And there's a couple of places where characters are not actually touching the ground. They're walking on air. Sometimes the animations are a little janky. Like, I said it to a friend, like, you can see in the game programming, you can visualize it. Animation script 18 complete. Return character to idle stance. Initiate animation sequence 19. There's a few places like that where the animation is a little janky, or characters suddenly slide into place or suddenly zip into place because they got stuck on something. And I emphasize these are all nitpicks. They didn't detract anything. I just noticed it. It's like, again, my favorite game is Final Fantasy VI, and that game is glitchy as hell. I don't mind. What I do mind is when these technical issues directly interfere with gameplay, and this game has that too. The lighting engine, it makes it hard to see where you're going sometimes, or to notice entrances to other locations and passages. Now, apparently this is just something with the engine. I'm not a game programmer. I don't know anything about that. But it's still frustrating when, I can't see, I'm in this cavern, and there's an exit on the other side, and I can't see it because it's enshadowed. And, it's only once I get a certain distance away from it, or rotate the camera a certain way, that the lighting now lets me see it. And that was frustrating. There were a couple places in the Gungaga region where it's there were paths under cliff overhangs, sort of. And there was this weird thing where it's I went under the cliff, but not far enough that the lighting engine changed. So the scenery and my characters were just in darkness. And I was just flailing my sword, walking back and forth. I hope there's not a chest in here that I can't see, because I'll see the triangle prompt and just swing the sword hoping there's boxes around. And where it really did is the game actually glitched on me. And it was in chapter 12, there were a couple of times when I fast traveled in that chapter, and when I got to my destination, the screen was just white. And I mean glaringly, blindingly white. And I had brightness to the settings on 0. I did not adjust that. But the game, it was so blinding light, you could really not see. You could see vague outlines of characters, but you couldn't see where you were going. And I don't know what happened with that. And I even saved and loaded the game, and it still persisted. And I think I closed the game and reloaded. I think that fixed it, but still, it was frustrating to fast travel in this chapter, and suddenly I can't see. And in the same chapter, there were 2 proto-relic side quests in the Corel region, where during the cutscene, again, it just went white. The scene kept playing, and I could hear the voices, and the subtitles appeared on screen, but I couldn't see what was happening. And throughout that side quest, I noticed in other places, when I would interact with the cactuar rocks, the lighting would suddenly flare up, and everything was very desaturated and bright. So, not everyone has said... So I've seen some reports that other players have had that, others have said they haven't. I don't know what the cause could be, but I hope that's something they couldn't fix, because again, it was annoying that I'm playing and suddenly I can't see what's happening in the cutscene, or I can't see where I'm going and have to close and reload the game. Technical issues like that are not nitpicks. Those are things that are interrupting my gameplay. Please fix them. Okay, so that's enough for the gameplay aspects. Story and writing. And I'm going to exclude chapter 14, which is the ending. People have said the last 2 chapters. I would say more 14 and the last 15 minutes, if even that, of chapter 13. And I won't talk about the ending in detail, but suffice to say, if you've seen the ending, you know it's weird, to say the least. If you haven't seen the ending, honestly, go fire up episode 25 and 26 of Neon Genesis Evangelion, and you'll come away with as much understanding as I did here. So I'll leave the ending for its own thing. But otherwise, uh, for the characters, character writing is top notch. Everyone in this game is likable. Yuffie's likable. Aerith remains as awesome as ever. Pardon me. A lot of people have praised John C. Bentley for his portrayal of Barrett, and all the voice actors do great work, but he definitely does deserve praise because Barrett has a lot of emotional moments in this game, and he sells them. And I think also credit has to do with, I can't remember his name offhand, I'm sorry. Red 13's voice actor also does a great job. I won't spoil it, but during the game, something happens with Red 13 in regards to his voice acting performance, let's say. And it was spoiled for me, unfortunately, by YouTube. But when it happens in game, I was like, okay. And it works, though. The voice actor made it work. And also credit to Kate Sith's voice actor. I believe it's Paul Tino. I apologize for the misremembering. Kate Sith's voice actor does awesome. And that's the thing, like, I think, like, of the new characters or in this game, Kate Sith is the standout to me. They made him so charming and so adorable. I couldn't help but smile in pretty much every scene he was in. Cause like he plays up the cat mannerisms. Like he does the face all the time. And he like does the big cat grin. He meows the victory fanfare. Like pardon me. I don't know what else I can say there. He meows the victory fanfare. And there's a part where you have to control him as the party leader, and his run animation is basically the Gorn roll. He just like curls up into a ball and rolls around at high speed, and but he actually can use it to roll up and down vents quickly. And he rides his Moogle in battle. He fights by himself normally. He summons his Moogle with an ATB command, and the Moogle looks so silly, and the Moogle has jiggle physics for its belly as it's like waddling around the battlefield and punching enemies with its oversized fists. And Kate Sith is just hilarious to watch in every scene. And I wouldn't say rewrote, but, kind of. They tweaked the writing behind his betrayal of the party, which I did not see coming and was a surprise. So, minor spoiler, if you know in the original game there was a moment where Kate Sith betrays the party. And afterwards, he stays in because behind the scenes he's kidnapped Marlene and basically blackmails him into taking him along. They doesn't have to do that in this game, so when Kate Sith betrays him, he leaves the party. And I did not see that coming. And like it makes sense story-wise. No, Kate Sith can't handle them anymore. Kate Sith can't hang with them anymore. They don't want him around. They don't trust him now. And then it makes his return in the Temple of the Ancients, and if you know what he does there, they really sell that here. He is just a robot, but it's almost I didn't cry at all in this game. I don't cry easily, but it's an emotional moment, and like I felt sad to see the little guy go. Basically spoiled it there without spoiling it. But yeah, Kate Sith is awesome in this game. My favorite new character because he's just so much fun. And I subscribed to a friend that I was like, and my friend was like, whoa, they haven't played Rebirth yet. They're still playing Remake. They said, hang on, they redeemed Kate Sith in this game? Yeah, he's a lot of fun in it now. And they show him, like, emphasize him as the tech-savvy guy who can hack Shinra and get them information. They redeemed Kate Sith. This I gotta see. So, yeah. Character writing is overall awesome. The voice actors are all great. The characters are all likable. There's returning characters from Remake, some of which felt a little gratuitous and unnecessary, like, oh, they really liked Andrea, so we'll have them for a couple cameos. And it makes sense at the Gold Saucer, less so other places. You know, like, but overall, like, it wasn't like gratuitous or anything like that. You know, like, old characters showed up because they would show up here. It does stretch the suspension of disbelief a little that a surprising amount of minor supporting characters just up and left Midgard to travel the world for whatever reason, but it doesn't bother me. So now to the story. Mostly it does follow the OG pretty much beat for beat. The places where it diverges, again, excepting the last chapter and a half, the places where it diverges are usually in the interest of expanding the narrative or rewriting the narrative to flow better and make more sense. I know this is probably going to upset some people. In the original game, I did not like Sephiroth as a villain, and a major reason why was because he was an inactive villain. He didn't really do that much when you think about it, at least not on Disc 1. You know, like, he showed up a couple times, spouted some cryptic babble, and then took off. And the party's chasing Sephiroth, and that's all that's happening. We're chasing Sephiroth. We don't know why. He's planning something bad, probably. We're not sure what, but we gotta stop him. And, like, that's not an exaggeration. I actually, like, if you actually go back, like, at least 2 times that I can recall, the party basically calls a meeting and to recap what's going on, and they admit, we don't know what Sephiroth's planning, but it's probably bad and we should stop him. We know he, like, wants to get the black materia. We don't know what that means yet, but we shouldn't let him do that. We shouldn't let him have it. It would be bad for reasons we don't know. This game, the narrative flows much better. Initially, they are chasing Sephiroth, but, you know, and they're following the black-robed men, and the concept of the black materia is introduced much earlier, and, like, the party, like, goes to specifically to learn about it. There's a thing where, like, we need to get a Shinra terminal so we can access their database to look up information on a thing. We're going to this area because we want to see what's happening at the old reactor in this region. And I'll also say that helps so much because I also remember, and when you actually look at the game script, the story basically stops after Rocket Town, and like you're expected to go back to the Gold Saucer and get the Keystone, but you find out about that by talking to NPCs. Like the narrative basically does not have a way to nudge the player to go get the Keystone. But with the reworked narrative in this game, you do. So overall, the narrative just flows better. The reasons characters do things make more sense. The reasons things happen make more sense. An interesting new detail I thought, and very mild spoiler. In the original game, the huge materia were just powerful materia that Shinra wanted to create. In this game, they call it the Magnus materia, and it's actually related to the weapons. The weapons are waking up because the planet is in danger, and they're starting to awaken and appear. And it turns out that in the original game, if you remember, all the weapons had this large red orb somewhere on their bodies. They're not red in this game, at least not on the weapons we see, but those orbs are materia, really strong materia. And Shinra has been trying to create an artificial version of weapon materia that they call the Magnus materia. And they also are interested in studying and maybe even capturing one of the weapons to get a natural sample. So that was an interesting way to tie those plot points together and like introduce the concept of weapons and huge materia earlier. So that was neat. And then again, they introduced the black materia much earlier and explained how it was created. And I did not see that coming at all. And that's probably like one of the bigger divergences that they take that isn't in service to new plot elements. You know, it's just to expand on an old one. But there's basically like a mini dungeon dedicated to explaining how the black materia was created and why. And the party is directly told, well, not directly, but they're given the sense, this thing is dangerous and really powerful. Sephiroth is after it. And I will also say about Sephiroth, again, I didn't like him as a villain in the original game because he was very inactive. They fixed him for this game. Sephiroth appears much more often, but it's not like in Remake where Cloud like hallucinates him. Like, I felt Sephiroth was one of the weaker parts of Part 1, because he did his typical thing. He just appears to spout cryptic babble and taunt Cloud, and then he vanishes. In this game, no, he's actually pretty devious. He appears frequently, and he works towards breaking Cloud. Like, he sows paranoia in him about his allies. Like, it's in the trailers and it's early in the game, so I just mentioned. Like, he appears to Cloud. You saw me kill her at Nibelheim. So who is she? And then, like, he brings up later, you know, Genova can shapeshift. She can take the form of those you love and those you fear. She likes to fool people to get close. And, like, he sows those seeds of paranoia in Cloud's mind. And sometimes he does appear just for the sake of fucking with him. But he does usually appear to, like, whisper in his ear and make him doubt himself and doubt his allies. And really, it's almost like a Palpatine-esque, give in to your aggressive feelings, let them flow through you. That's not an exaggeration. Like, there are times when he says, like, let that righteous anger guide you. Fill your hollow heart with hate. So, they make Sephiroth a more active and intimidating villain because he is not in the background as much. They don't like oversaturate the game with him. He doesn't appear too much, but when he does appear, it's to screw with Cloud's mind and to say things and do things to try and break Cloud. And it really does get tense. And there is a new thing that happens in Gungaga where it's like, oh shit. This is this is like the first big crack in Cloud's persona, and it's frightening to see. You know, like, I'll give it away. Like, Sephiroth basically controls Cloud's mind briefly, and you see Cloud, like, give a smirk to some Shinra troopers, and he raises his sword in the Sephiroth pose with the blade coming over the shoulder. And you see him strike that pose, and his smirk and just his physicality and facial expressions, that really sells. This is Sephiroth now, and it's scary. And the fact he can take control of Cloud this relatively earlier, and like directly take control of him and use him to fight, even if just for a minute or two, that's scary. And the other thing that they do well with Sephiroth is, in the original game, I didn't really buy that he was this uber powerful soldier. Like, in the flashback, I remember he's at level 50, he has maxed out materia, and he has high level equipment. Of course he's so ridiculously powerful, you know? You give me a level 50 party with maxed out materia, I'm just as strong. Not so here. With the different battle system, like, you've controlled the other characters by now, and when you get to control Sephiroth in the Nibelheim flashback, he is way strong. He moves really fast, he deals high damage. His triangle ability lets him do special combo finishers to pile on more damage, and also lets him add finisher moves to his ATB abilities. So he really does come off as just ridiculously powerful, way stronger than any of the other characters you've controlled. He's faster, he's stronger, he has more skills than them, he can use some sort of magic on his own, like he fires blasts of darkness from his hand as a ranged move, and he does still have his top tier equipment and high level and materia. So they do tell me, yeah, Sephiroth is just beyond you. As strong as Cloud and the others are, Sephiroth is better. So, as an overall, the tweaks they make to the narrative to help it flow better do improve the story. It's not universally improved. You've probably seen around, the Barret and Dine stuff is controversial, and I don't think they ruined it, but it is weaker. They changed it so that Old Corel, under the Gold Saucer, it's the former worker barracks for the workers of the Gold Saucer. It's not actually the original Corel. So instead you fight Dine based in a shack in the middle of the desert instead of fighting in the ruins of their hometown. And there's this boss fight immediately after the Dine confrontation, and the boss fight is against Palmer, and it starts with him popping out of the hatch to moon the party. Mood Whiplash. And then after that, when the party has to flee from Shinra, you basically play a pointless minigame with Barrett where he shoots down the Shinra bikers and helicopters and Palmer coming after them. And it does really ruin the emotional moment. The confrontation itself is handled well. And they did change the circumstances of how Dine dies. But they sold it in a way that I think it still works, but others disagree. In the original game, he threatened Marlene. In this game, it's a different thing. But the fight itself is also really emotional. Like, they changed, one of the nice things is they changed Barrett's voice lines. Like, instead of the normal voice quotes, like, "Suck on this, come get some." Now he has lines like, "Forgive me, please." And with the music, it really does come off as an emotional, tragic moment. And then Dine powers up and, a magnetic field gravitates Scrap towards him and forms a giant claw around his gun arm that he uses to smash into Barrett. And the tragedy is lost. The thing that did occur to me, I will say, is that one of his attacks is to stick his gun arm into the ground and make tentacles of Scrap emerge from the ground to grab Barrett. So I think they kind of intended Dine's moveset to be an allusion to Ruby Weapon. But still, no, we don't need this emotional fight to be a spectacle. Just let the emotions carry it. And another thing I personally didn't really care for, the Temple of the Ancients, Shinra moves in and gets there before the party, so the first half of the Temple of the Ancients is a lot of fight against Shinra. And on the one hand, it's a little silly because, they've, relatively speaking, they're stronger enemies from Remake because you're fighting them later in the game. So that was a little odd. But also, it basically came off like an excuse to have Shinra boxes and treasure chests lying around the first areas of the temple. And you also fight the Turks here, and I will say though, some people have said it does pad things out a bit, you have to fight Rude and Elena, and this is the third or fourth time you fought them, because Reno's Japanese voice actor passed away. Reno gets non-speaking appearances and a couple of scenes beforehand, but most of the game he spends it on the bench before the Temple of the Ancients. So instead it's just Rude and Elena, and again you fight them 3 or 4 times, including the Temple of the Ancients. Now on the other hand, you do get to fight Reno eventually, and Reno and Rude again, and you also get to fight Elena and Sung. And that's really cool. You've never fought Sung in the original game, or any game. The only time Sung was featured in battle was before Crisis. So it's really cool we got to see Sung in action. And there are a couple other problems with the story. There are scenes with Zack, I think it's every other chapter has an interlude with Zack, and they are completely pointless. Honestly, you could take all the stuff happening with Zack and condense it into one chapter near the end of the game, and you wouldn't have to change the rest of the story. The Zack stuff is just filler and padding. And on the one hand, I feel like they kind of had to give that to us because they opened the game with you playing as Zack. So, you don't want players to spend the next 90 hours wondering what's going on with Zack until the final chapters. But on the other hand, again, Zack's chapters are pointless. And when you're replaying the game through chapter selection, they give you extra options, you can set your companions based on affection values in certain chapters. And one of the extra options is to just skip Zack's scenes. So if the developers include the option for you to automatically skip Zack's cutscenes, that tells you that they're pointless. And something else that's pointless is there's a lot of scenes with Rufus where he talks to an emissary from Wutai. And I'll spoil it up how it's Glenn Glodbrock or something. I can't remember his last name. It's the guy from First Soldier / Ever Crisis. and he's like emissary of Wutai now, and he and Rufus, the way they talk, it's kind of hinted that Wutai is and wants the war, or at least Wutai is controlled by people who want a war, as like cover for Shinra to invade and conquer them. And the big thing is that it took me too long to get this when it should have been obvious. The current interim leader of Wutai is Viceroy Saruf. Can you guess who Viceroy Saruf is when this emissary tells Rufus Shinra about him? Yeah, and like in the final scene, they basically come up on they do come out right out and say it, like they Viceroy Saruf didn't show. Well, if you'd spent more on that set, maybe he would have. That's true. Rich kids do like pretty nice things. So Rufus is like controlling Wutai secretly as Saruf, and he wants a war to control the world, and he doesn't really, and that's where he's different from his dad. His dad was obsessed with the Promised Land and Neo Midgar. Rufus just wants to rule the world. So in some ways that makes him worse than President Shinra, but also he's more calculating and subtle and willing to reason. He actually tries to call a truce with the party, because like he basically tells them, "Yep, you're escaped fugitives. You've got the last ancient with you. You stole a valuable lab specimen from Hojo. I really don't care. I got my shit full at Midgar. You guys left a big mess, and I'm still cleaning up. How about we just call a truce, huh?" It doesn't work out, but it's interesting that he brings it up. Anyway, to the point, all the scenes with Glenn and Rufus are pointless. It's build up for stuff that's going to happen in part 3. And that build up is subtle, and they do show you how the Rufus and Glenn are basically instigating another war between Wutai and Shinra without being overt about it. But it's pointless, nothing comes of it. And there's a twist with Glenn in his final scene that implies this is all another part of Sephiroth's machinations. Interesting. Pointless. I don't know how it helps him or serves him. So yeah, Rufus's scenes with Glenn are pointless. And they're just filler. It's just set up for stuff that's going to happen in part 3. Speaking of, it's finally time to talk about that ending. Oh, that ending. That was definitely an ending of our time. It concluded the game. The credits rolled. There was a final boss. That was an ending. So seriously, big spoiler. If you want to know the big spoiler about Aerith, this is your chance to pause or mute the video. She dies. And I unfortunately was spoiled on that because some prick, like 2 days after the game came out, uploaded on YouTube, and the video, I'm not going to mention the channel title because I'm not into the interest of attacking people, but they titled the vid, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth Ending, Aerith Dies. So, that was disappointing. The thing is, though, if I hadn't known, they did do an effective fake-out. Because in this version, Cloud swings his sword to try and stop Sephiroth, and succeeds. And with how the emphasis they've put on the unsurety of Aerith's fate, I would have bought, in that moment, if I hadn't known better, that Cloud managed to stop him. But then, like, the Matrix glitches, and there's the flick, and suddenly, no, Aerith is impaled. And that's when things really get weird. Like, I can't even tell you exactly what's happening. I could only try to describe the events that are on screen. What does seem to be happening is, again, characters shifting between different timelines or alternate worlds, and Sephiroth. It's implied that, at the end of Chapter 13, basically the reunion in this continuity is not merely gathering all of Genova's cells to himself, it's reaching into the life stream to gather her from, or reaching into the multiverse to gather her parts together and merging them all into one, which Sephiroth will rule over alone. Now, I will say on the multiverse, I say like different worlds instead of alternate timelines because, of course, there's a lot of theories. The main theory I've seen that I think is interesting and plausible, and I hope that is what they're going with it, is that it's not it's that it's just a different interpretation of the of the compilation lore, where all these spirits in the life stream they fragmented and separated, and each fragment of that soul is sort of in its own purgatory, like a pocket dimension. There's a piece of Zack's soul where he lived and made it to Midgar. There's a piece of Zack's soul where he helped Biggs. There's a piece of Zack's soul where he tried to help Cloud. There's a piece of Zack's soul in a world where he wasn't sure. And as these pocket purgatory worlds from these fragments of souls, because it is the life stream, they can mingle together. They can merge with each other. They can touch other fragments of souls. They can touch the spirits of the living. And it was a really interesting theory, and it made sense when I read it. Like, yes, this makes sense with what we know about the live stream in the compilation already. It's just a different way of visualizing it. Instead of just fragments of souls as spirit energy, they're actually like reliving a purgatory, and we're seeing this and these pieces of their souls like coming together, and that's why what Sephiroth's going to do. He's going to reach into all the fragments of the life stream and combine it all into one. There will be no pocket worlds within the life stream. There will be no fragments of souls. There will just be him. So that's the interpretation of the ending I've chosen to go with. I'm sure other people have other interpretations, but I think that makes most sense. So on that note, again, Aerith dies, but it seems like Sephiroth shifts into a parallel world where, Aerith is spared by Cloud, but Sephiroth shifts into a world where she died, and like Cloud's soul, however you want to see it, it's vague if like Cloud is just really cracked and thinks Aerith is still alive and that he saved her, or she did die. It's not completely in his head, because at one point in the ending, Red 13 senses her. So I think that's going to be part of the twist in part 3. I've seen speculation that, not in it really, but in this game, Cloud kind of already figures out that his memories of Nibelheim are fake, and he's misremembering things. He sort of remembers Zack. Like, he actually mutters his name at one point, and he's like, I remember Zack. He and I were friends in Soldier, and we were at Nibelheim together, and he died there. So, he hasn't figured out the whole truth, but he's realized my memories of Nibelheim are false, and Zack was there. So I've seen speculation that in part 3, when Sephiroth breaks Cloud's mind with this horrible revelation, it won't be the truth about Nibelheim that he uses to do it. He'll reveal the truth. You thought Aerith was alive. You've been hallucinating. It's all been me manipulating you. You failed to save her. She's dead. She has been. And that will be what breaks Cloud. And I could see that working. It'll be interesting to see how they play that from part 3. What I will say in this game is, again, I was thoroughly spoiled in FF7 when I originally played it, and Aerith was my favorite character in the original game. I didn't cry at her death in the original game or here, but it was sad to see her go. But again, I didn't cry, and I don't have a strong emotional or nostalgic connection to the original scene. But objectively speaking, they did ruin the emotions. In the original game, Aerith dies, and then we get the Genova fight. The same thing happens here, although the Genova fight is still action-packed, and the party members are using their own the normal battle quotes. I mentioned that Barrett's battle quotes against Stein are different. They should have done it here, but they didn't. I saw someone say that when they issued a command to Cloud, as he attacked Genova shortly after Aerith's death in his arms, Cloud's battle quote that he used was, "Nothing personal." So yeah, so that plays out, but the Genova fight is expanded into much more of a spectacle. And then comes the final boss gauntlet, which is all spectacle. And I'm going to say, it's awesome spectacle. throw out all the spoilers. Cloud and Zack fight Sephiroth together. And Sephiroth Rebirth appears, and Cloud has to fight him alone. And then the party fights Sephiroth. Bizarro Sephiroth in the original game. They retranslated him properly as Sephiroth Rebirth or Sephiroth Reborn. I'm pretty sure that's Sephiroth Rebirth. I don't recall exactly, but anyway. So Cloud has to fight him alone, and then the party members fight him, and it's like Sephiroth is appearing between worlds, and Zack has to fight him in a church, where the ruins of the Sector 5 church in a world that's about to end, and there's a hint of Aerith's presence here. And finally the party defeats him, and Barrett sums it up. He still ain't dead yet? And Sephiroth returns to what is sort of the edge of creation, but it's more like a blank void. And then a portal opens up, and I gasped audibly. Aerith walks out. And you see that pop up. Aerith joined the party. Let's finish this together. And the actual final boss fight of the game is Cloud and Aerith versus Sephiroth. And that was so amazing. I died a lot to that boss, and I liked it because it was a proper challenge, and you had to make use of Cloud and Aerith's unique abilities and playstyles, because at times Sephiroth is immune to magical attacks, or immune to physical attacks. You have to use Aerith's spellcasting to damage him. And other times he's moving too fast. Aerith couldn't possibly dodge his attacks. You gotta play as Cloud and to handle this phase. So the final boss gauntlet is fantastic spectacle, very challenging, very fun, and completely undercuts the emotional impact of Aerith's death by not only happening immediately after it happens, but sort of kind of featuring her fighting alongside Cloud. And there's no break between these. Aerith dies, Jenova fight, Sephiroth boss gauntlet. People have criticized they cut the burial scene. And I've seen, again, the speculation that when Sephiroth breaks Cloud in Part 3, it'll be with the truth of Aerith's death, and that's when we'll see the burial scene. But still, they cut it here. And that could have worked to transition. Have the Jenova fight, Cloud comes and buries Aerith, and then we have the Sephiroth boss gauntlet. Give us a moment to take in the impact of the emotions. Don't just throw us into the boss battle. It's the same problem as Barrett with dying, but now it's worse. That being said, I also saw someone say there's a lot of comparisons have been made to Kingdom Hearts, and I hate that. And I saw someone make the comparison that it's unfair in this part particularly because Tetsuya Nomura knows how to just let the emotional scenes happen and play out. And thinking back to Kingdom Hearts 3, yeah. When Roxas returned, he let that sink in. And when Roxas and Shion and Axel had their reunion, you got to absorb that scene, and they just had that moment together. They didn't immediately initiate a boss battle right after. You took control of Sora and had to go on to the next boss battle, but it wasn't like you were immediately there, So yes, Nomura knows how to let the emotional scenes settle. They didn't do that here. But back to the point I'm making, I've seen people compare this to Kingdom Hearts. Especially because the ending is clearly setting up for Part 3 and a lot of scenes that don't make sense out of context. There's scenes of the Whispers and the weapons and Zack and Cloud and Aerith where you have no clue what's going on, and you're going to have to wait for Part 3 to find out. So that's where the comparisons to Kingdom Hearts have been coming from. But, in fairness, this is not the same because in Kingdom Hearts, and this is not me bashing it, I like Kingdom Hearts, or liked complicated emotions anymore. By his own admission, Nomura does not have everything planned out. Some things are spur of the moment, some things he makes up as he goes along. The thing I remember, the original deep dive video of Roxas fighting the Heartless in The World That Never Was and the Skyscraper. At the time, Nomura hadn't decided who those two hooded figures were, and the phrases that flashed on the screen were just ideas he had in his head for where a sequel to the game would go. And it was once Kingdom Hearts 2 was planned out that they went back and found places in the script to insert those phrases. And they wrote the story to explain who those hooded figures were and how they got to that place in the story. So again, by his own admission, Nomura does not plan things out well in advance sometimes. He just, in a minor instance, I remember the original Birth by Sleep secret ending, the characters wore armor because he didn't want to show their faces yet, because he hadn't designed them. And he didn't want to reuse the black coats. Pardon me. So that's Nomura, but here that comparison, comparing Rebirth to Kingdom Hearts is not apt for a simple reason. Yes, they're leaving mysteries dangling in the air. Yes, it can be a bit confusing to understand. But there's an ending. Kingdom Hearts, like, there could be 2 more spin-off games before we get Kingdom Hearts 4 someday. Like, there's Kingdom Hearts Missing Link and and Melody of Memory. But no, this was always going to be a trilogy. And even with them featuring an Ever Crisis character here, you don't have to have played Ever Crisis to follow their scenes. And you kind of need to play Crisis Core to understand Zack's scenes. But even then, like, as long as you know who Zack is, story-wise, you don't have to play Crisis Core. They haven't featured Genesis. They haven't featured Angeal. There's Loveless, and there's a reference to G-type soldiers. But point I'm making is, this is a 3-part story. It was planned out as a 3-part story, and it is being told as a 3-part story. These confusing plot lines and mysteries have a fixed endpoint that they have planned ahead of time. They included them in part 1, they built on them in part 2, they will be concluded in part 3. This is not Kingdom Hearts. This story will have an ending. All these plot threads will tie together and be explained. If they're explained satisfactorily or thoroughly enough, we'll see, but that's why I say don't compare it to Kingdom Hearts. This has an end goal, an end game that they're writing towards and have had them planned. Now, if the payoff is worth it, we'll have to see. So, that covers my thoughts overall. One other thing I'll say is that this story is not padded. Remake story was padded a lot, especially with areas that were very, very long and that expanded into full dungeons. Less so this game. The dungeons don't feel as long, and they're spaced out better. The padding comes from the side quests, which are optional. If you want to take a break from the main quest to do side quests, you can do that. If you don't want to, you don't have to. So the pacing of the story is much, much better, and the dungeon design is better too. Like, the Cave of the Gi, I mentioned to someone online, it almost felt like it was a Zelda dungeon, and I mean that in a good way. Like, there were kind of sort of puzzles where you had to find these statues and bring them to a pedestal to unlock the path and find a way to keep this path open. So dungeon design, marked improvement, and also last thing, the mini games. Some of them are really nasty, and in particular 3D Brawler is complete bullshit RNG luck, but the mini games are very fun, and Queen's Blood is so damn addictive. I love it. I've seen Square Enix has said like they're open to expanding it and players have called for it. I'd love to see, like, if they came out with a standalone app for Queen's Blood, I'd play it. I occasionally play Triple Triad on the Portal app. It's disappointing that they haven't updated it in years, and it's boring because there's only like 15 opponents and 3 difficulty levels. But still, I play Triple Triad. I'd play Queen's Blood. But yeah, that sums up all my major thoughts. I'll end by just reiterating the flaws I pointed out, again, excepting the last chapter, because I don't feel, aside from Aerith's death not being handled well, I don't feel it's fair to let the last chapter ruin the rest of the game, because it's all clearly set up for Part 3, which hasn't happened yet. So, we can't judge how good or not Part 2 was, because we don't know what it means. When Part 3 comes out, and if we could replay this game, and now, oh, that's what that meant. Okay, now I understand. Now it makes sense. Now Chapter 14 makes sense. That sort of thing. But otherwise, most of my complaints and problems with the game are minor nitpicks. Again, some minor technical issues, a little bit of wonkiness on some of the animations and the lighting engine. Some of the mini games are brutally a little much, and um, I lost my train of thought already. But yeah, all my problems are nitpicks. They do not detract significantly from the overall experience. They're just little scratches on a beautifully finished surface. This really is one of the best Final Fantasy games. It is remarkably well done. I'm honestly amazed that they pulled this off and that this game ended up being what it was being. And I said to Night Sky Prince in his Twitch chat, I said, okay, take this level and amount of creativity and love and this level of polish of the gameplay and expanding the characters and the side quests. Take all of this, put it on a new original story concept, and you have the greatest Final Fantasy game of all time. You know, like everything you've done it. You did everything right with this game on a technical level in terms of gameplay and character writing and balance and world design. They nailed it. Now do that in a new setting and call that Final Fantasy 17, and you're gonna have the best game ever. As is, Rebirth may be the best Final Fantasy ever in terms of overall experience. The only thing holding it back, again, are those minor nitpicks, and also, this is clearly part 2 of a story. Apparently Square Enix has said you don't need to play Remake to play Rebirth. Bullshit. You definitely need to play Remake to understand Rebirth. And you also, there's part 3 to come up, and we'll see how that concludes the story. So like, this is clearly Act 2 of a 3-part story, so it's hard to judge it on its own merits a little. But as far as I can judge it on its own merits, 9 out of 10. This game is fantastic. If you aren't a huge Final Fantasy VII fan, I wasn't either, and originally, this game blew my mind. And I think this game is incredible. And again, like, there's nothing really lacking in it. There's minor hiccups and nitpicks, but it checks all the boxes of everything I could want from a Final Fantasy experience. It's fun, it's fun, it's emotional, it's sad, it's epic, it's dramatic, fun gameplay, awesome characters, great world. It has everything. Pretty much, again, everything I would want in a Final Fantasy game is here. Except for Terra, but, maybe PC modding will take care of that. Why haven't PC modders put Terra in over Scarlet yet? Because then we could play Yuffie's DLC episode and have Terra riding red Magitech armor as Yuffie's DLC boss. That's amazing. PC modder, if Exumia comes to PC, apparently Sony secured exclusivity rights. But we still have Remake, so I'm just babbling now. Point is, the game is awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've played it for 150 hours at this point, and I have still not completed hard mode. So that shows you how much time you could put in this game and how much time I'm willing to put in. I got nothing more to say, so thanks for watching if you're still watching at this point. Rebirth is amazing. Check it out if you haven't already. Take care.